While my daughter-in-law was taking her final breaths alone in the dark, I sat in my car and discovered a truth that shattered my heart. My son wasn't grieving. He was laughing with his mistress just 3 blocks away. Even at her funeral, he checked his watch, impatient to start his new life. He walked into the lawyer's office, arrogant and sure he was inheriting millions. But he didn't know that his dying wife had left him a final, shocking surprise. I told him exactly what he deserved. You traded a diamond for glass. I watched him lose his car, his money, and his mistress in a single day. This is the story of how I chose justice and cut my own son off forever.
My name is Mary, and I am 72 years old. I used to believe a mother's forgiveness was endless, but life taught me otherwise. Today, I am sharing the story of how I chose to protect my dying daughter-in-law by cutting my own son out of my life forever. They say a mother's love is the only thing in this world that is truly unconditional. They say there is nothing a child can do to make a mother turn her back. I used to believe that. I used to preach it. But I learned the hard way that love has limits. Even a mother's love has a breaking point. My breaking point didn't happen with a scream or a fight or a slammed door. It happened in a quiet hospital parking lot under the weak glow of a flickering street lamp. It happened when I looked out my car window and saw my son, the boy I raised, checking his hair in the rearview mirror of his sports car. He was smiling. He was laughing into his phone. He was laughing. And upstairs, on the 4th floor, in room 402, his wife was taking her final breaths. Sarah, my sweet, gentle Sarah. She was holding on to a bedsheet with hands that were too thin, waiting for him, asking for him. Shh, she whispered. That was the last thing she ever said to me. I lied to a dying woman to protect her heart. I told her he was coming, but I knew the truth. That night, as the heart monitor flatlined, something in me died too. I didn't just lose a daughter-in-law. I lost a son. Because when I saw what he did, I knew I couldn't be his mother anymore. This is the story of how I cut him off, and why even today, I don't regret it. To understand the end, you have to understand the beginning. You have to know who David was before the money, before the ambition, and before the selfishness took over his soul. My son, David, was a golden boy. That's what everyone called him. He had hair the color of wheat and a smile that could get him out of any trouble. He was the kind of child who felt things deeply. I remember when he was 7 years old, he found a bird with a broken wing in the garden. He didn't poke it or run away. He made a shoebox into a bed. He dug up worms for it. He cried for 2 days when that little bird died. He had a good heart, or so I thought. When his father passed away, David was only 22. He had just finished college. My husband, his father, died suddenly of a heart attack. It was a terrible time. The house felt too big, too empty. But David stepped up. He became the man of the house overnight. I remember the day of the funeral vividly. It was windy. I was shivering by the graveside, feeling like my legs were going to give out. David took his coat off and wrapped it around my shoulders. He held my hand so tight I thought my fingers would break. "I've got you, Mom," he whispered in my ear. "We're going to be okay." I looked at him, so young but trying to be so strong, and I felt a surge of pride. I thought, I have done a good job. I have raised a good man. 3 years later, he met Sarah. Sarah wasn't loud or flashy.
She wasn't the type of girl who demanded attention when she walked into a room. She was a librarian at the city public library. She loved old books, the smell of vanilla, and rainy Sunday afternoons. She was an orphan. Her parents had died in a car crash when she was a teenager, and she had no siblings. She had grown up in foster care, bouncing from house to house, never really having a place to call her own. When she met David, she didn't just fall in love with him, she fell in love with the idea of us, of a family. I remember the first time David brought her home for dinner. She was so nervous. She brought a store-bought apple pie and apologized 3 times because she didn't have an oven to bake one from scratch. She sat at our small kitchen table, looking around at the photos on the walls, at the mismatching plates, with a look of pure wonder.
"You have a lovely home, Mrs. Miller," she said softly. "Call me Mary," I told her, or I hoped one day she would call me Mom. They got married in the spring. It wasn't a big, fancy wedding. We didn't have the money for that, and Sarah didn't want it anyway. We had it in the backyard. The cherry blossoms were falling like pink snow. When David said his vows, his voice cracked. He promised to love her, to cherish her, to protect her. "You are my home, Sarah," he said. I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. After the wedding, Sarah truly became my daughter. Since she had no mother of her own, she adopted me, and I adopted her. I lived in the small guest cottage behind their main house. It was a perfect arrangement. It was close enough that I could smell Sarah's cooking. She eventually learned to bake that apple pie from scratch, but far enough away that they had their privacy as a young couple. Those first 5 years were the golden years. It was the kind of life you see in movies or read about in those storybooks Sarah loved so much. David started his own business, a consulting firm. He was smart, ambitious, and charismatic. The business started small, just him and a laptop at the dining table, but it grew. Sarah supported him every step of the way. When he worked late, she brought him coffee. When he was stressed about money in the beginning, she picked up extra shifts at the library. She believed in him more than he believed in himself. "He's building our empire, Mom," she would tell me, her eyes shining. We were a team, the 3 of us. We had Sunday roasts every week. We celebrated birthdays with homemade cakes. We laughed. Oh, how we laughed. I remember one afternoon in particular. We were in the garden, planting tulips for the spring. Sarah wiped some dirt off her cheek, leaving a smudge, and looked at me. "Mom," she said. She called me Mom so naturally by then. "Thank you for sharing David with me." I squeezed her hand. I meant it. She was the glue. She was the heart. But time is a funny thing. It moves slowly and then all at once. And success is a dangerous drug. As David's business took off, things started to change. It wasn't overnight. It was a slow erosion, like water wearing down a stone. First, it was the clothes. The comfortable sweaters were replaced by tailored Italian suits. Then it was the car. The sensible sedan was traded in for a flashy black sports car. Then it was his time. He started missing Sunday roasts. "Work is crazy, Mom," he would say, not even looking up from his phone. "I have to meet a client." Then he started missing dinners with Sarah. I would look out the window of my cottage and see Sarah sitting alone at the dining room table, 2 candles burning down low, 2 plates set, but 1 chair empty. She would wait. She would wait until the food was cold. And then she would quietly pack it away in Tupperware and sit on the couch, waiting for the sound of his key in the door. When I asked her about it, she always defended him.
"He's doing this for us," she would say, forcing a smile. "He wants to make sure we're secure for the future." She loved him so much. She loved him enough to let him neglect her. She loved him enough to make excuses for his selfishness. And David took that love, and he used it like a doormat. He wiped his feet on her kindness and walked all over her. But we didn't know how bad it was going to get. We didn't know that a storm was coming that would blow our little house down. We didn't know that while David was chasing money and status, something dark was growing in Sarah's body, something that doesn't care about money or sports cars. And that was when the real test began, a test that my son would fail in the most heartbreaking way possible. It started with a cough. Just a small, dry cough that wouldn't go away. Sarah dismissed it. She said it was allergies. She said it was the dust from the old books at the library. But then came the fatigue. Sarah, who used to wake up at 6 a.m. to water the garden, started sleeping until noon on weekends. She looked pale. Her skin, usually so rosy and full of life, turned a translucent shade of gray. I told David. I cornered him in the driveway one morning as he was rushing to his car. He checked his watch, annoyed. "Mom, she's fine. She's just tired. She works too hard at that library. I'll buy her some vitamins," he said, opening his car door. "I gotta go." He drove away. He didn't go inside to kiss her goodbye. 2 weeks later, Sarah found a lump. We went to the doctor on a Tuesday. It was pouring rain. David was supposed to come. Sarah had called him 3 times that morning, begging him to clear his schedule. "I'm scared, Dave," she had whispered into the phone. I was standing right there. I heard his voice on the other end, loud and impatient. "Sarah, I can't just leave. I have the quarterly review. Mom is there, isn't she? Take Mom." She hung up the phone and looked at me. Her eyes were swimming with tears. She didn't say a word. She just grabbed her purse, and we walked out to my old car. The doctor didn't smile when he came in with the results. He sat down and folded his hands on the desk. He used words that felt like punches to the gut. Aggressive. Stage 4. Metastasized. Cancer. The room spun. I reached out and grabbed Sarah's hand. Her hand was ice cold. She didn't cry for herself. That was the thing about Sarah. She never thought of herself first. "What is he?" was the first thing she said. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and say, "He isn't here. He chose a meeting over you. Worry about yourself." But I stayed silent. I just held her. David came home at 8 p.m. He was buzzing with energy. The meeting had gone well. He had closed a big deal. He walked into the kitchen, where Sarah was sitting at the table, staring at a cup of herbal tea. "Babe, you won't believe it," he started, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "We landed the Johnson account. That's a $50,000 commission. We're going to celebrate this weekend." He turned around and finally looked at her. He finally saw the red, puffy eyes, the slump of her shoulders. "What's wrong?" Sarah took a deep breath. She stood up and walked over to him. She put her hands on his chest. He frowned. "Like the flu?" The silence that followed was heavy. I watched my son. I waited for him to wrap his arms around her. I waited for him to cry. But he didn't. He took a step back. Literally. He stepped away from her, as if the cancer was contagious. "Cancer," he repeated. "But you're young." "They're sure," she said. He ran a hand through his hair. He looked at the ceiling. He looked at the floor. He looked everywhere except at his wife. "Okay," he said finally. His voice was businesslike. It was the voice he used for solving problems at work. Okay, we'll get the best doctors. I have the money now. We'll pay whatever. I don't need money, David, Sarah said, her voice trembling. I'm scared, he snapped. He sounded angry. I'll handle the logistics. He walked out of the room. He went to his home office and closed the door. That night, Sarah cried herself to sleep in my arms in the guest room. David slept in the master bedroom alone. The next 3 months were a nightmare. Chemotherapy is a thief. It steals your energy, your appetite, your hair, and your dignity. Sarah fought hard, but the cancer was stronger. I moved into the main house to be her full-time caregiver. I cooked soup that she couldn't eat. I washed sheets soaked in night sweats. I read to her when her eyes were too tired to focus. And David? David became a ghost in his own home. He left early in the morning before she woke up. He came home late, after she was asleep. When he was home, he avoided the bedroom. He complained about the smell of the medicine. "It smells like a hospital in here, Mom," he told me one day in the kitchen. He was making coffee, looking annoyed. I slammed my dish towel on the counter. It was the first time I raised my voice. "She is your wife, David. She is dying." He spun around, his eyes cold. "I can't fix it, okay? Watching her fade away, it's too hard. I'm not like you. I'm not a nurse. I'm providing. I'm paying the bills." "She doesn't need your money," I hissed. She shouted, "I can't just sit there and watch death. I have to live my life, too." Those words hung in the air like toxic smoke. His wife was losing her life, and he was worried about his. But it wasn't just avoidance. If it was only cowardice, I might have forgiven him eventually. Some men are weak. But David wasn't just weak. He was wicked. I started noticing the signs about 2 months in. He started guarding his phone like it was the nuclear codes. He changed his passcode. He took it into the shower with him. He started buying new clothes again, trendy shirts, cologne. Who buys new cologne when their wife is bedridden? One afternoon, I was cleaning out his car, trying to be helpful, trying to keep the peace. I vacuumed under the passenger seat. I found a receipt. It was from a fancy Italian restaurant downtown, Giovanni's. The date was from last Friday night, 8:30 p.m. I remembered last Friday. David had called and said he was working late on a spreadsheet. I looked at the receipt. It wasn't a dinner for one. 2 lobster risottos, 1 bottle of Chardonnay, chocolate lava cake. My hands started shaking. I felt bile rise in my throat. He wasn't working. He was on a date. I looked out the window at Sarah. She was sitting in her wheelchair in the garden, a blanket over her knees, watching a butterfly. She looked so peaceful, yet so fragile. If a strong wind blew, it might shatter her. I crumpled the receipt in my fist. I wanted to march into his office and scream. I wanted to tell Sarah. But then I thought, what good would it do? She was dying. The doctor said it was a matter of weeks now. If I told her that the man she adored, the man she worried about every single day, was cheating on her, it would break her spirit. It would rob her of the only comfort she had left, the illusion of his love. So I made a choice. A terrible, heavy choice. I decided to carry the secret. I decided to let her die believing he was a good man. But I also made a promise to myself. I smoothed out the receipt and put it in my pocket. I will not forget, I thought. And when she is gone, he will pay. That evening, David came home smelling of perfume. Not Sarah's vanilla, but something floral and cheap. He walked into the living room where Sarah was resting. "Hey, babe," he said. forcing a bright tone. "How was your day? Good?"
He didn't wait for an answer. He kissed her forehead. A quick, dry peck, and pulled away instantly. He said, "I'm gonna go shower." Sarah looked at him with big, sad eyes. "David?" she asked. He stopped in the doorway, impatient. "Yeah? Could you sit with me for a bit? Just 10 minutes? I miss you." He sighed. He actually sighed. "Babe, I really need a shower. I feel gross. Maybe later, okay?" He walked away. I saw Sarah's face crumble. She turned her head into the pillow so I wouldn't see her cry. I walked over and stroked her hair. "He's just stressed, honey," I lied. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. "He loves you." "I know," she whispered. I feel like I'm already a ghost to him." Little did she know she wasn't a ghost. She was an inconvenience. And the worst night of all was yet to come. The night of the rain, the night of the parking lot, the night everything changed forever. Time has a strange way of warping when you are living in a tragedy. Some hours feel like seconds, slipping through your fingers like water, and some minutes feel like lifetimes, stretching out until you think you might scream from the tension. 2 weeks after I found that receipt in David's car, Sarah collapsed. It happened in the kitchen. She was trying to pour herself a glass of water. I heard the glass shatter, and then the thud of her body hitting the floor. I screamed for David. He was upstairs, working. He came running down, phone in hand. For a split second, I saw panic in his eyes. Just for a second. Then, the mask slid back into place. The mask of the busy, burdened man. We called the ambulance. The paramedics came. The sirens wailed. That was the last time Sarah ever saw her home. She never saw her garden again. She never saw the kitchen table where she used to wait for him. She was moved to the palliative care unit on the 4th floor of St. Jude's Hospital, room 402. Palliative care is a polite word for waiting for the end. The doctors stopped talking about recovery and treatment. They started talking about comfort and transition. They told us it wouldn't be long, maybe a week, maybe days. I moved into that hospital room. I slept in the uncomfortable vinyl recliner next to her bed. I didn't want her to wake up alone in the dark. And David? David visited, technically. He would come by at 6 p.m. after work. He would stand at the foot of the bed, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He looked like a caged animal. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. "Hey, Sarah," he would say, his voice loud and jarring in the quiet room. "You look resting. That's good." Sarah could barely speak by then, but her eyes would follow him. She was drinking him in, trying to memorize his face before she left this world. "Sit," she would mouth. She patted the spot on the bed next to her hand. "I can't stay long, babe," he would say, checking his watch. Always checking the watch. "I have to meet with the insurance guys. Lots of paperwork to sort out for everything." He was already planning for life without her. He was already doing the math. I watched him leave every night. I watched him walk down that hallway, his stride lengthening as he got further away from her. He looked relieved. One night I followed him out. "David," I called out. He stopped, his back stiffening. He turned around slowly. "What, Mom? I'm late." "She is scared, David," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. "She knows what's happening. She doesn't want paperwork. She wants you. Just stay. Just for one night. Cancel the meeting." He looked at me with a mixture of pity and annoyance. "Mom, you're being emotional. Someone has to be the adult here."
"Someone has to make sure the bills get paid and the arrangements are made. I'm doing this for her." "You're doing it for yourself," I whispered. He didn't answer. He just turned and walked into the elevator. The doors closed, cutting him off from us. I walked back into the room. Sarah was looking at the door. "He had to go," I told her, smoothing the hair back from her forehead. "He loves you so much, but he's trying to be strong. I was becoming an expert at lying, and I hated myself for it. It was a Friday night when the end began. The storm outside was violent. The wind howled around the corners of the hospital, rattling the windows in their frames. Sarah had been drifting in and out of consciousness all day.
Her breathing had changed, a ragged, shallow rhythm that the nurses called the transition. I had been sitting in that plastic chair for 12 hours straight. My back was screaming. My head felt heavy, like it was filled with lead. At 8:30 p.m., the nurse, Brenda, put a hand on my shoulder. "Mary," she said softly, "you need a break. Go get a coffee. Go sit in your car for 10 minutes. Nothing is going to happen right away. I'll stay with her." I looked at Sarah. She was asleep, her face pale against the white sheets. She looked so small. I needed to get out. I felt like I was suffocating in that room. "Okay," I whispered, "just 20 minutes." I walked out into the cold, wet night. The rain felt shocking on my face, but it felt real. I got into my car and decided to drive to the coffee shop a few blocks over. The hospital was located near the edge of the city center. To the left was the quiet residential zone. To the right was the downtown district, restaurants, theaters, the nightlife. I pulled up to the main intersection just outside the hospital gates. I was shaking from exhaustion. The light was red. I sat there, listening to the rhythmic thump-thump of my windshield wipers, watching the blurry lights of the city through the rain. That's when I saw the car. It was stopped at the light across from me, in the turning lane. I knew that car. I knew the custom rims. I knew the way the headlights looked. It was David's car. My heart leaped into my throat. "He's here," I thought. "He finally came."
But then I realized where he was. He wasn't in the lane to turn into the hospital. He was in the left turn lane, the lane that led to the highway, the lane that led downtown toward the steakhouses and the jazz clubs. He was driving away from her. The street lamp above the intersection flickered, casting a pool of yellow light directly onto his windshield. I saw him clearly. He wasn't gripping the wheel in panic. He wasn't crying. He was relaxed. One hand was draped casually over the steering wheel. And he wasn't alone. There was a woman in the passenger seat, the seat where Sarah used to sit, the seat where Sarah used to hold his hand on the way to chemotherapy. She was young, with long blonde hair that fell over her shoulders. She was wearing a red dress. I could see the bright color even through the rain. It wasn't a sordid scene. It wasn't a quick fling in a parking lot. It was something far worse. It was romantic. I watched as the woman laughed at something he said. She leaned over and rested her head on his shoulder, a gesture of easy, comfortable intimacy. David didn't push her away. He leaned his head sideways, resting his cheek against her hair for a moment. He said something to her, and she smiled, a soft, glowing smile. He looked happy. He looked like a man on a first date. He looked like a man with a bright future, starting a new chapter. The air left my lungs. 3 blocks away, his wife was fighting for every single breath, terrified of the dark. And here he was, bathed in the warm glow of his dashboard, playing house with a new woman. He hadn't just cheated on Sarah. He had already replaced her. He had erased her before she was even gone. To him, Sarah was already the past. This girl in the red dress, she was his present. The green arrow flashed. David's car moved forward, turning smoothly to the left. He accelerated toward the city, toward the music, toward the life he was so desperate to live. I watched his taillights fade into the distance, blurring into 2 red streaks in the rain. I sat there through the entire green light. Cars honked behind me, but I didn't hear them. I felt a coldness settle in my chest that had nothing to do with the storm. I felt the death of my family. Not just Sarah's death, but the death of the son I thought I knew. I didn't get the coffee. I made a U-turn.
I drove back to the hospital to sit with the girl he had thrown away. I had to pull myself together before I walked back into room 402. I stood outside the door for a full minute. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I took deep breaths, trying to stop my hands from shaking. I couldn't let her know. I couldn't let the last thing she felt on this earth be heartbreak. The truth would do nothing but hurt her. I opened the door. The room was darker now. The nurse, Brenda, looked up at me. She gave me a small, sad smile and shook her head slightly. "It's close," her eyes said. I walked to the bed. Sarah was awake. Her eyes were open, but they were glassy. She was looking at the ceiling. Then her eyes darted to me. She tried to lift her head, but she was too weak. "Mary," she whispered. It was barely a sound. It was just air shaped like words. "I'm here, baby," I said, rushing to her side. "I'm here." She looked behind me. She was looking at the door. She was waiting. Did David come? The question hung in the air. I saw the image in my mind again. The blonde hair, the ice cream, the laughing. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to tell her, "He is a devil, Sarah. Forget him. Let go." But I looked at her eyes. They were filled with such desperate, childlike hope. She needed him to be the man she thought he was. She needed that peace to let go. So I swallowed the bile. I swallowed the truth. And I told the biggest lie of my life. "Yes," I said.
He was here, Sarah. Her eyes widened slightly. He was? Yes, I lied. He came while you were sleeping. He sat right here. He held your hand. I squeezed her hand tight, hoping she could feel the phantom warmth of his touch through mine. He told me to tell you he loves you, I continued, the tears streaming down my face now. He said he is so proud of you. He said he's trying to be strong for you, and that's why he couldn't stay. He couldn't bear to see you in pain, but he loves you more than anything. He loves me, she repeated. A tiny, faint smile touched her cracked lips. The tension in her shoulders released. He loves you, I promised. He's working on the future, for you, just like you always said. Okay, she breathed out. Okay. She closed her eyes. She looked peaceful. The fear was gone. She didn't open her eyes again. I sat there for another hour. I listened to the rain hitting the window. I listened to her breathing get slower and slower and slower. And then there was silence. Beep. The nurse came over and gently turned it off. She checked the time. 10:42 p.m., she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Mary." She left me alone with her. I stood up. I looked down at my daughter-in-law. She looked like she was sleeping. She looked free from the pain. I leaned down and kissed her forehead one last time. Then I whispered into the silence of the room. A promise. "I saw him, Sarah," I whispered. My voice was hard as stone. I saw him laughing. I saw her. I placed my hand over her cold hand. You protected him with your silence. You loved him with your whole heart. And he threw it away like trash. I straightened up. I wiped the tears from my face. I wasn't sad anymore. I was dangerous. "I promise you," I said to the empty room. "He thinks he has won. He thinks he is free. He thinks he is going to take your money and live a happy life with that girl." I looked at her wedding ring, the simple gold band still on her finger. He is wrong. He won't get a dime. He won't get a moment of peace. I will take everything from him, just like he took everything from you. I turned off the bedside lamp. The darkness felt heavy. But for the first time in months, my mind was clear. I had a job to do.
If the betrayal in the car was the knife in my back, the funeral was the twist of the blade. We buried Sarah on a Thursday. The sky was the color of bruised iron. It threatened rain, but the rain never fell. It just hung there, heavy and suffocating. David put on the performance of a lifetime. He arrived early. He wore a black suit that fit him perfectly, too perfectly. He must have had it tailored the week she died. He stood by the casket, greeting every guest with the practiced solemnity of a politician. He shook hands. He accepted hugs. He let old ladies pat his cheek. "I don't know how I'll go on without her," I heard him tell Sarah's old aunt, Mrs. Higgins. "She was my anchor." He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and dabbed at dry eyes. I stood back. I stood under the shadow of an old oak tree, away from the main crowd. I couldn't bear to stand next to him. I was afraid that if I got too close, the smell of his hypocrisy would make me sick. So I watched. I watched him lie to everyone. But mostly I watched what he did when he thought no one was looking. The service was long. The pastor spoke about Sarah's kindness, about her love for books. It was beautiful, but David was restless. To the guests, it looked like grief. He shifted from foot to foot. He sighed heavily. But I knew my son. That wasn't grief. That was impatience. He kept adjusting his cuff. Every few minutes, he would slide his sleeve up just an inch, checking the time on his expensive watch. Then he would look up, scanning the perimeter of the cemetery. He wasn't looking at the grave. He was looking at the road. I followed his eyes. Parked on the service road, about 50 yards away from the mourners, was a black sedan. It didn't belong to anyone in the family. It was sleek, modern, and out of place among the hearse and the old family cars. The windows were tinted so dark you couldn't see inside, but the engine was running. I could see the faint puff of exhaust in the cold air. Someone was waiting. David looked at the car. For a split second, his face changed. The mask of the grieving husband dropped, and beneath it was a look of annoyance. He gave a sharp, almost imperceptible nod in the direction of the sedan. "Wait," the nod said. "Almost done." Then Sarah's aunt approached him again, and instantly the mask slid back into place. His shoulders slumped, his eyes drooped. He was the widower again. But I knew. That girl, the blonde from the rainy night, she was in that car. She hadn't come to pay respects. She was his getaway driver. She was waiting for the body to be in the ground so they could get on with their day. He had brought his mistress to his wife's funeral, and he was keeping the engine running. I felt a cold, hard stone form in the pit of my stomach. He thought he was being clever. He thought he was being discreet. But he forgot one thing. A mother sees everything. I touched the pocket of my coat. Inside was the receipt I had found, and inside my purse was the key to Sarah's safety deposit box. "Check your watch, David," I thought, watching him fake another sob. "Check it all you want, because your time is running out." After the burial, people came back to the house for the reception. David played the host perfectly. He poured drinks, he thanked people for coming, but I noticed he kept checking his phone. The blonde girl hadn't come to the house, thank God for small mercies, but I knew she was waiting somewhere. When the last guest left, David let out a long breath. He loosened his tie and poured himself a scotch. He walked into the kitchen where I was washing dishes. "Well," he said, "that went well. Dignified. She would have liked it." I didn't turn around. I kept scrubbing a plate. "She would have hated it," I said. "She hated crowds." He sighed. "Mom, don't start. I'm exhausted." He leaned against the counter and took a sip of his drink. "Listen," he said, his voice shifting. He dropped the grieving husband act and picked up the business voice. "We need to talk about logistics." I turned off the water. I dried my hands on a towel. "Logistics?" I asked. "Yeah, you know, the estate, the will, insurance." He swirled the ice in his glass. I made an appointment with Mr. Henderson, the lawyer, for next Tuesday. I need you to come, just to sign off on some things." "Sign off on what?" I asked. "Oh, you know," he waved his hand dismissively.
"Just formal stuff. Sarah had that policy, the life insurance, and the house deed needs to be transferred to my name solely. It's a hassle, but I want to get it done so I can move forward." "Move forward," I repeated. "Exactly. I was thinking, this house is too big for me now. A place for him and the blonde girl. He was going to sell Sarah's garden. He was going to sell the kitchen where she baked pies. He was going to cash in on her death and use the money to fund his new life with the woman he cheated with. Sarah had a life insurance policy worth $500,000, and the house was worth another $400,000.
He was looking at $1 million payday. I looked at him. I looked at my son, and I saw a stranger. "Okay," I said softly. "I'll be there on Tuesday." He smiled. "Thanks, Mom. I knew you'd understand. We have to be practical." "Practical. Yes," I said. "We have to be practical." Tuesday came. I wore my best Sunday dress. I put on my pearls. I arrived at Mr. Henderson's office 15 minutes early. Mr. Henderson was an old friend of Sarah's grandmother. He was a man of integrity, the kind of lawyer who still believed in right and wrong. He greeted me with a warm, sad handshake. "Mary," he said, "I'm glad you're here." "Does he know?" I asked quietly. Mr. Henderson shook his head. "No, he has no idea." "Good," I said. I sat down in the leather chair and waited.
At 10 a.m. sharp, David walked in. He didn't look sad. He looked impatient. He was checking his phone as he walked through the door. "Sorry I'm late," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "Traffic was a nightmare. Let's get this started, shall we? I have a lunch meeting at 12. He sat down across from me. He gave me a quick, distracted smile. "Hi, Mom. You look nice." "David," I nodded. Mr. Henderson sat behind his massive desk. He put on his reading glasses. He opened a thick file folder. David leaned forward, his elbows on the table. He looked like a wolf waiting for a steak. "So," David said, "standard procedure, right? I'm the spouse, so I'm the primary beneficiary. We just need to sign the transfer papers for the house and the check for the insurance." Mr. Henderson didn't smile. He looked at David with a mixture of pity and contempt. "Not quite, Mr. Jenkins," the lawyer said. David frowned. "What do you mean? We did our wills 3 years ago. Everything goes to the surviving spouse." "That was the previous will," Mr. Henderson said calmly. "However, I am in possession of a last will and testament dated October 14th of this year, just 3 weeks before Sarah passed." David froze. He did the math in his head. "October 14th?" he stammered. No, that's impossible. She was sick. She was bedridden. She never left the house." Mr. Henderson opened the folder and tapped a document with his pen. "You are correct. She didn't leave the house. She called me to come to her." David shook his head. "I would have known. I was living there. I was managing her schedule." Henderson leaned back in his chair. A small, cold smile touched his lips. "Were you?" "I checked my notes," Mr. Henderson said. "October 14th was a Tuesday. You were out of town that week, weren't you, Mr. Jenkins?" David blinked. What?" "You were on that 3-day business trip to Miami," the lawyer said. He emphasized the words business trip with a tone that suggested he knew exactly what kind of business it was. "You left on Monday morning. Sarah called me on Monday afternoon. Since the house was empty and you were occupied in Miami, it gave us the perfect window of privacy." David's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I watched the realization wash over him. The irony was suffocating. He had gone to Miami to cheat on his dying wife, to spend 3 days in the sun with his mistress.
And because he left, he gave Sarah the exact opportunity she needed to call the lawyer and cut him out of her life. His own betrayal had paved the way for his punishment. I came over on Tuesday morning, Mr. Henderson continued. I brought 2 witnesses and a video camera to ensure there could be no claims of mental incapacity or duress. She was of very sound mind, Mr. Jenkins. David shifted in his seat, looking from the lawyer to me. Mom, did you know about this? I just stared at him. I didn't blink. Read it, David snapped at the lawyer, his voice rising in panic. Just read it. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat.
I, Sarah Jenkins, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament, revoking all prior wills. He looked up. To my husband, David Jenkins. David leaned in. His eyes were wide, desperate. I leave my wedding ring. Silence. The room went dead silent. The ticking clock sounded like a hammer. Talk. 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 David let out a nervous laugh. Okay, sentiment, that's nice. The ring and nothing, Mr. Henderson said. David blinked. Excuse me? That is the entirety of the bequest to David Jenkins. The ring, she wrote a note here, to remind you of the vows you made and the vows you broke. David stood up so fast his chair flew back and hit the wall. This is a joke, he shouted. His face turned red. This is some kind of sick joke. She can't do that. I'm her husband. You can't disinherit a spouse completely. Actually, Mr. Henderson said, his voice ice cold, you can, provided the assets are separate property, and in this case, Sarah was very careful. He turned the page. Regarding the house at 42 Maple Street, as you know, the down payment and mortgage payments were made entirely from Sarah's inheritance trust, money she received from her grandmother. The lawyer looked over his glasses. Because she never commingled those funds with your joint accounts, and because the deed is in her name alone, the house is considered separate property. It is hers to give. David was breathing hard. So, it's my home. It was her home, Mr. Henderson corrected. And she has left the property, in its entirety, to the Sunrise Hospice Care Foundation. She gave my house to a charity? David screamed. She gave her house to the people who cared for her, I said. I spoke for the first time. David spun around to look at me. You knew. You let her do this. I didn't let her do anything, I said calmly. She decided, while you were in Miami. And the money? David turned back to the lawyer. The life insurance? That's $500,000. That policy has my name on it. She changed the beneficiary on the same day, Mr. Henderson said. Since she was the policy owner, she had the right to change the beneficiary at any time. And she did. To who? David demanded. To the person she described as, quote, the only one who stayed. Mr. Henderson looked at me. It is left to you, Mary. David's knees gave out. He slumped back into his chair. Mom, he whispered, you're taking the money? It's not your money, David, I said. But I have plans, he yelled. He was desperate now. The veneer of the businessman was gone. He was just a greedy child throwing a tantrum. I put a deposit down on a condo. I have debts. I need that money. For what? I asked. I stood up slowly. I walked over to the table. To spend on her? David went pale. Who? The girl, I said. The blonde girl, the one you were with in Miami, the one you were with in the car the night Sarah died. He stepped back. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I slammed my hand on the table. I saw you, David, the night Sarah died. I saw you laughing in your car. Sarah knew. She knew about Miami. She knew about the receipts. And she made absolutely sure that you wouldn't use her death to fund your new life with that woman.
I picked up the file with the check inside. You have the ring, David. Go get it. Put it on your finger, and every time you look at it, remember that you traded a diamond for a piece of glass. They say that when it rains, it pours, but for David, it didn't just pour, it flooded. I walked out of that lawyer's office and I didn't look back. I drove straight home to the cottage behind the empty house, and I locked the door. David tried to call me 5 times that afternoon, 10 times the next day. He left voicemails. At first, they were angry. He shouted about his rights. He shouted about fairness. Then they became desperate. I listened to one, just one. "Mom," he cried into the phone, "you can't do this. The condo. I already put the deposit down. If I don't pay the rest by Friday, I lose it. I lose everything." I deleted the message. The house of cards collapsed faster than I expected. When David told the blonde girl, Jessica, that the inheritance was gone, she didn't offer to stand by his side. She laughed in his face. Without the money she was counting on, she walked away and left him standing on the sidewalk alone. With his reputation ruined by the scandal, his business folded within months. 6 months after Sarah died, I watched from my kitchen window as a tow truck took that shiny black sports car away. David left town in shame.
He lives 2 states away now, working a small job, living a small life. He sends me a Christmas card every year, just a signature, no letter. I put them in a drawer and I never look at them again. I didn't keep the money. I didn't need $500,000 to be happy. I took every penny of that insurance check and walked into the hospital where she died. I told them, I want to build a place where people aren't scared. We built Sarah's wing. It doesn't smell like medicine. It smells like vanilla and fresh rain. The rooms open up to a garden full of tulips. I volunteer there every day. I hold the hands of patients who have no family, making sure that no one ever has to look at the door and wonder if they've been forgotten. It heals me. Every time I see a patient smile, I feel Sarah smiling with me. People ask if I'm lonely without my son. I tell them no. I have my peace. I have a clear conscience. David chased the shiny things, the status, the thrill, the better life, and he ended up with a handful of dust. I chose loyalty, and I ended up with a heart full of memories. Real love isn't a diamond ring or a promise of a future empire. Real love is showing up. Real love is sitting in the uncomfortable silence so someone else doesn't have to be afraid. So, if you are listening to this, go home, kiss your wife, hug your husband, call your mother. Don't wait for the right time, because the rain can start at any moment. And when the storm finally comes, you want to be the person holding the hand, not the person driving away in the dark. In the end, those who trade loyalty for temporary pleasure always end up alone. David lost everything chasing a fantasy, while I found peace in the truth. Have you ever witnessed such betrayal or seen justice served in your own family? Please share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. If this letter touched your heart, please like the video and subscribe to open your next letter.